The night air was heavy and wet, pressing down on everything that moved beneath it. The SEAL team moved slowly through the narrow valley, boots sinking into soft ground, weapons held steady but low. They had trained for moments like this for years, yet something about this mission felt different from the start. The silence was too deep. Even the insects seemed to hold their breath. At the center of the formation was their commander. He was not the loud type. He rarely raised his voice and never rushed a decision. The men trusted him because he listened, because he walked the same ground they did, and because he never asked anyone to take a risk he would not take himself. That trust had been earned over many missions, some successful, some painful, but all survived together. Their objective had seemed simple on paper: locate a high-value target, confirm presence, and extract before dawn. Intelligence said resistance would be light. A short window, clean in and out. But paper plans had a way of falling apart once boots touched the ground. The first sign of trouble came as a faint click in the distance. It was almost nothing, the kind of sound that could be mistaken for a stone shifting. The commander froze and raised his fist. The team stopped instantly. No words were spoken. They had moved like this so many times that silence was a shared language. Moments later, the night exploded. Gunfire tore through the quiet, flashing light, and thunder crashing from the hillsides. The enemy had been waiting, not scattered, not weak, but dug in and ready. The valley turned into a trap, with fire coming from angles no one had expected. The commander reacted without hesitation. He shouted short, clear commands, guiding his team toward cover, pulling them away from open ground. He moved forward, not back, checking positions, making sure everyone was accounted for. That was who he was. Even in chaos, his focus was always on his people. As they tried to break contact, an explosion hit nearby. The ground lifted and slammed back down. Dust filled the air, choking and blinding. When the smoke cleared just enough to see, the commander was on the ground. One of the team rushed to him, dropping beside his body. He was alive, but badly hurt. Blood soaked into the dirt beneath him, dark and spreading. His breathing was shallow, uneven. The medic moved in fast, hands shaking just enough to show how serious it was. Enemy fire closed, and again, heavier now. The team returned fire, fighting to hold their position, but the numbers were against them. Every second they stayed, the danger doubled. The radio crackled with urgent voices from command, asking for status, demanding updates. The answer was not simple. They had a wounded commander who could not move on his own. They had limited cover, and they had an enemy that knew exactly where they were. The commander tried to speak. His voice was weak, but his eyes were clear. He looked at his team, one by one, and shook his head. He understood the situation better than anyone. He knew what staying would mean. "No," he whispered, though it sounded more like air escaping his lungs. The medic leaned closer, telling him to save his strength, promising they would not leave him. But the commander's hand tightened around the medic's sleeve. His message was clear. He did not want his team to die with him. Above them, command made a decision that would change everything. The order came through sharp and final. Extraction now. The area was compromised. Air support could not reach them safely. If they did not pull out, none of them would make it home. The team argued. Voices rose, unheard by anyone beyond their circle. They tried to explain. They begged for time. They asked for one more chance. But the answer did not change. Leave. Now. The commander heard the order through the radio. He closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them again. He looked calm, almost peaceful, in a way that made it worse. He nodded once, slowly, like a man accepting something he had already decided. The team did everything they could in the seconds they had left. The medic stabilized him as much as possible. They dragged him deeper into cover, marking the position, memorizing every rock, every tree, every shadow. One of them pressed his forehead against Commander's helmet, whispering words no one else could hear. Then they pulled away. Each step back felt wrong. Every instinct screamed at them to turn around, to fight harder, to ignore the orders and stay. But training, discipline, and the knowledge that more lives would be lost held them in place. As they moved toward extraction, the sounds of fight faded behind them. The valley swallowed the noise. leaving only the echo of what they had done. Back at base, the team was quiet. No one spoke during the debrief. The commander's seat remained empty, untouched. His gear was cleaned and stored, but no one could bring themselves to look at it for long. Reports were written. Statements were recorded. The words felt cold and small compared to the reality of that night. The official language said loss in action. Some reports hinted at presumed killed. The team did not accept that. They knew their commander. They knew his strength, his will, his refusal to give up. If anyone could survive against the odds, it was him. But belief was not enough in a world run by protocols and timelines. Days passed, then weeks. Higher command reviewed the footage, the maps, the data. They weighed risk against reward, politics against possibility. In the end, the decision was made quietly and without ceremony. The area was deemed too dangerous. The chance of survival was labeled minimal. Recovery mission denied. When the team heard the final answer, something inside them broke. Not loudly, not in a way anyone else could see. It was a silent fracture, the kind that never fully heals. They were told to stand down, to refocus, to prepare for future assignments. They nodded and followed orders, just as they always had. But trust had been shaken, not in each other, but in the system that had taught them no one gets left behind. Late one evening, as the base settled into uneasy rest, one of the team sat alone, scrolling through old mission records. He wasn't sure what he was looking for. Maybe proof they had missed something. Maybe comfort. Instead, he found a name buried deep in classified files. Not attached to his team, not active anymore, but tied to operations that had gone wrong, and then somehow right. Missions where hope had returned when logic said it shouldn't. A sniper. A woman. A legend most people thought was just a rumor. The file was thin, almost intentionally so. But one detail stood out. She had worked with their commander once, long ago, and she had trusted him enough to risk everything. The team did not know it yet, but the story of their commander was not finished. And the night they walked away from that valley was only the beginning. The days after the mission were heavy with silence. The SEAL team returned to base, but it felt empty, like walking into a house where the lights were on, but the people were gone. Each man carried a weight on his shoulders, the kind of weight that could not be lifted by words, by camaraderie, or even by time. They had left someone behind, someone they were supposed to protect, someone they had trained with, bled with, and trusted with their lives. Inside the walls of Command Center, the hum of activity continued, as if nothing had happened. Officers moved between rooms, checked reports, and typed into computers, all part of the machine that never stopped. To the team, it was the same world, but nothing felt the same. Everything was out of place. The maps on the walls seemed to mock them, showing territory that had cost them everything in a matter of hours. The team tried to resume routines. They cleaned their gear, ran drills, and even participated in briefings. But their minds were elsewhere. Each time someone mentioned the mission, or even the commander, a quiet tension filled the room. They could not look each other in the eyes without remembering the valley, the gunfire, the explosion, the look on the commander's face when he told them to go. Command officially declared the commander Kia. They called it presumed dead in reports, a term that felt sterile, like wiping a stain off a table without acknowledging it was there. For the men, it was more than a word. It was a betrayal of what they knew to be true. He was alive. He had to be. How else could someone like him simply disappear in the middle of a chaotic mission and leave no trace? The team tried to push through the denial. They went through briefings, mission updates, and strategy sessions. They listened politely when new orders were given, nodded at instructions, and acted as though they could focus on the next task. But beneath the surface, their thoughts were a storm. Every night, images of that valley haunted them. The flash of the explosion, the smell of smoke, the sound of bullets cutting to the dark, the shallow breathing of their commander. Requests for a recovery mission were made quietly at first, then more boldly. The team spoke to their immediate superiors, then to higher command. They described the terrain, the enemy positions, and every detail that could help locate him. Each time, the answer was the same: denied. Too risky. Too many variables. Too dangerous. Command had made their decision, and it would not change. The team met in the quiet corners of the base, talking in whispers, sharing theories, piecing together scraps of intelligence. They scoured satellite images, maps, and previous reports. Every detail was examined, every angle considered. Some nights, they could not sleep, replaying the events in their heads, imagining what could have been done differently. They knew every step of that night, every decision made, every movement executed. Yet no matter how clear the picture, the answer from command remained the same. Leave it. Frustration grew into anger, and anger into a silent resentment, not toward each other, but toward the system that had told them to leave a man they considered a brother behind. They had trained under belief that no one gets left behind, that every life mattered, that trust was absolute, and yet, in the cold calculation of distant leaders, that trust seemed meaningless. Rumors began circulating through the base. Stories of a legendary sniper, a woman who had operated on missions that were deemed impossible, reached their ears. Most dismissed it at first as exaggeration or myth. She had been gone for years, operating in shadows and whispers, never seeking attention. Some said she never failed, never missed, and never left anyone behind. Her name was not in the current rosters, not in the files, but her legend had survived. One of the team remembered seeing her once, years ago, in a briefing room. She had been calm, almost cold, but there was a quiet authority in the way she carried herself. When she spoke, everyone listened. The commander had worked with her before, and she had respected him. That respect was rare, earned only by those who proved themselves under impossible conditions. As the days stretched into weeks, hope became something secret, something they dared not speak aloud. Command's reports insisted the commander was gone. Intelligence briefings suggested the enemy had taken him, or that he had not survived the explosion. But the team refused to accept it. They knew him too well. They had seen him adapt to impossible situations, survive where others would fail, and keep calm when the world around him was falling apart. He would not be gone. Not like this. The base became a place of waiting and planning. The team continued their training, but every drill, every exercise was overshadowed by the same thought: finding their commander. Each man carried that responsibility silently, as a promise to the man who had led them, guided them, and saved them more times than anyone could count. The bond between them had been forged in fire, and it would not break so easily. It was during one of these quiet nights, reviewing old mission logs and classified files, that a new lead appeared. Buried deep in the archives was a name that stood out: a sniper, a woman, known for her precision, patience, and unparalleled skill. She had operated alone, taken impossible risks, and returned with results no one else could achieve. Most importantly, she had worked with her commander in the past, and her respect for him was well known, even among those who only knew her by reputation. The details were scarce, intentionally vague, but they were enough to spark a flame of hope. If she was still active, if she could be located, perhaps there was a way to bring the commander back. Perhaps there was still a chance. That night, the team gathered in one of the quiet briefing rooms. Maps were spread across the table, lights dimmed, coffee cups forgotten. Every man leaned in, tracing paths, marking positions, connecting dots. The discussion was intense but hushed, a mix of strategy, desperation, and hope. They spoke of risks, of enemy positions, of the impossible odds. Yet in the center of it all was a single thought: someone had to try. They knew approaching command would be futile. Any formal request for a recovery mission would be denied. The higher-ups had made it clear the area was too dangerous. Any attempt would be unsanctioned. But that did not matter. They could not sit idle. They could not pretend the commander was gone. Every passing day made the possibility of his survival slimmer, and yet the need to act grew stronger. One of the men leaned back, rubbing his eyes. "There's only one way," he said quietly. "We can't go in ourselves." "Not yet, but maybe she can." The others looked at him, understanding immediately. The sniper they had only heard about, whose reputation had traveled ahead of her, whose skill had been spoken of in hushed tones, was their only hope. She was precise, patient, fearless. She could navigate the terrain they could not, see what they could not, and act where they could not. If anyone could locate their commander and keep him alive until they could extract him, it was her. Hope began to take shape, fragile but real. Plans started forming, not in official channels, but in quiet conversations. Notes passed between trusted men. Careful research conducted in the shadows. They tracked every rumor, every mention, every lead that could point to her. She was elusive, operating where few dared to follow. But they were determined. The nights at base became a mix of restless anticipation and quiet action. The team trained harder, analyzed longer, and shared every detail they could find about the sniper. Every piece of intelligence was scrutinized, every story cross-checked. They knew they were putting faith in someone who might not even exist, yet the possibility of finding her gave them a sense of purpose they had lost when the mission failed. And so, while command moved on, filing reports and updating protocols, the SEAL team held on to the hope that had not yet been extinguished. They believed, against every official report, that their commander was alive. They believed that someone, somewhere, had the skill and courage to find him. In the quiet hours, as the base slept and the world moved on, the team prepared themselves for a future that seemed impossible. They knew the road ahead would be dangerous, uncertain, and without guarantee. But they also knew one thing. They would not give up. They could not. Not for themselves, not for each other, and most of all, not for Commander who had trusted them with his life. And somewhere, in the shadows of classified files and whispers of legends, the name of the sniper waited. A name that could change everything. The story was far from over. The commander's fate hung in the balance, and the team, once turned away in silence, was about to discover that sometimes hope comes from the most unexpected places. She had been gone from the world of formal missions for years. Most people thought she had retired, vanished into quiet life, or simply walked away. But she never truly stopped being what she was. A sniper who could see more than most, think faster than many, and act with precision that bordered on instinct. She had learned long ago that patience was as deadly as skill, and that timing could mean the difference between life and death. The world had moved on without her, but she had not moved on from herself. Her small cabin, tucked away in a forest far from prying eyes, was simple but functional. Weapons were meticulously maintained, maps and notebooks were scattered across tables, and a few photos showed fleeting connections to a life she had left behind. She rarely entertained visitors, rarely spoke of the past, and never sought recognition. Her reputation, whispered across military circles, was enough to keep her presence alive in memory. She preferred it that way. When she first heard about the SEAL team and their missing commander, she almost didn't respond. It had been years since she had taken an active role in recovery missions, and she had learned the hard way that most operations failed because people relied on hope instead of planning. Yet, something about this situation struck her differently. The commander's name was familiar, tied to a moment of her past she rarely revisited. He had earned her respect once, and she could not ignore that connection, no matter how long it had been. She began quietly, studying the terrain and mission reports she could access. They were incomplete, intentionally vague, but enough to understand the scale of what had happened. The SEAL team had been forced to leave him behind, ordered to withdraw under fire, and labeled as presumed killed. Her instincts told her otherwise. The commander was disciplined, skilled, and unyielding. If anyone could survive against impossible odds, it would be him. Her preparation was methodical. She pored over maps, satellite images, and intelligence logs. She retraced every step of the failed mission, noting enemy positions, elevation changes, and potential paths of escape. Every detail mattered. The slope of the valley, the location of cover, the timing of patrol rotations. She visualized the scene over and over, mentally placing herself in each position, anticipating every reaction from both the team and the enemy. She did not hurry. Rushing would mean mistakes, and mistakes could cost lives. She packed carefully, selecting only what she would need. Her rifle, optics, night vision, and essentials for survival. She carried no excess, no luxuries. Every item had a purpose. Every action had a purpose. In her world, there was no room for error. While she prepared, the SEAL team continued their research and planning from afar. They communicated quietly, sharing scraps of intelligence she might need, but they did not want to impose. They knew that if she chose to act, it would be on her terms. She was not a soldier under their command. She was a legend who had earned the right to decide her own course. At night, She would sit by a small lamp, reviewing every detail she could find. Her eyes, sharp and unyielding, scanned maps, photographs, and satellite images. She memorized patrol patterns, noted enemy weaknesses, and calculated distances and timings down to the second. It was exhausting work, but necessary. Every calculation could save the commander's life. Every overlooked detail could cost it. She also considered the human element. The commander had survived dangerous situations before because of his instincts, his calm under pressure, and his understanding of the people around him. She imagined him assessing the terrain, choosing cover, rationing resources, and waiting for an opening. She allowed herself a small smile at the thought. He was resourceful, stubborn, and alive in ways most could not comprehend. That belief strengthened her own resolve. Communication with the SEAL team remained cautious. They sent her only the most essential information, terrain updates, enemy activity, and hints about the team's own position. They did not pressure her. They trusted her judgment. They knew she would act only when she felt the conditions were right. Trust, after all, was the same reason they had respected their commander. As days passed, she refined her plan. She determined the best insertion points, the routes that would minimize exposure, and the timing that would maximize success. She anticipated possible encounters, escape routes, and contingencies for every situation. She worked alone, but her mind considered the team she might coordinate with once the commander was located. She respected them, even though she had never met them, because they had been trained by the man she intended to save. The physical preparation was just as important as the mental. She ran drills daily, tested her equipment under stress, and simulated potential scenarios. Her body was strong, conditioned over years of rigorous training. Her mind was sharp, capable of maintaining focus under extreme pressure. Every movement was deliberate, every action measured. She knew that in the field, there would be no room for hesitation. Finally, the day came. She packed her remaining essentials, double-checked her weapons, and left her cabin without looking back. The journey to the insertion point was quiet and deliberate. She moved through forests, over ridges, and across streams, leaving no trace, making no sound. Every step was calculated to avoid detection. Every movement designed to preserve the element of surprise. The world she entered was hostile, but she thrived in such environments. Enemy patrols moved predictably, unaware of her presence, unaware that she had been watching, waiting, and calculating for days. She adjusted her route to avoid them, using shadows, terrain, and patience as her allies. Her focus was absolute. Failure was not an option. As she approached the area where the SEAL team had been forced to withdraw, she paused. From this vantage point, she could see the valley, the rocks, the paths the team had taken. She imagined the chaos, the firefight, the explosion, the fear, and the courage. Her heart remained steady. She knew that locating the commander would require more than courage. It would require observation, patience, and flawless execution. She found a position overlooking the terrain. From here, she could observe without being seen. Her scope scanned the area, noting signs of life movement and potential danger. Every detail was recorded mentally, every possibility considered. She adjusted her calculations, modified her approach, and prepared for the moment she would make her move. Time seemed to stretch. Hours passed as she observed, waited, and refined her understanding of the landscape. The night was quiet except for the distant sounds of wildlife and the occasional movement of enemy patrols. She remained hidden, patient, and vigilant. Every decision was deliberate. Every action could mean success or failure. Finally, she saw something. A faint disturbance, a shadow among the rocks. Her heart did not race. It never did. She studied the movement, recognizing patterns, comparing them to her knowledge of the commander's habits and instincts. She knew it could be him, or it could be a decoy, or it could be nothing at all. Yet something told her that the moment had arrived. She prepared her plan. This was not just about finding him. It was about keeping him alive long enough for extraction. She considered enemy positions, routes of approach, and signals to coordinate with the SEAL team. Everything had been calculated. Everything accounted for. The first step was the most critical, and she would take it with absolute precision. Night after night, she had honed her skills for this exact moment. She had trained her mind and body for years to operate under stress, To remain calm when every instinct screamed danger. She knew what was at stake. The life of the commander, the trust of the SEAL team, and the honor of completing a mission that others had deemed impossible. Her focus narrowed. The shadow moved again. She identified the features, confirmed the patterns, and recognized the presence of the man she had come for. The commander was alive, struggling but alive. Her heart remained steady, though a small smile crossed her face. Patience, observation, and skill had brought her to this point. Now, the next steps required action. She contacted the SEAL team, providing coordinates, details, and instructions. Her communication was precise, brief, and clear. She would remain in Overwatch, guiding the team while keeping the commander's location hidden from enemy forces. The team understood immediately, trusting her judgment as if they had known her for years. The plan was set. Extraction would be coordinated, precise, and swift. Every possible obstacle had been considered. Every contingency accounted for. The sniper had done what few could. She had located the commander, assessed the environment, and prepared the way for his return. As the night deepened, she settled into position. Her rifle rested on her shoulder, eyes focused through the scope, and mind sharp as ever. She waited, patient, vigilant, ready to act at the exact moment when all calculations aligned. The story was no longer about loss, despair, or failure. It was about hope, skill, and the quiet power of a woman who had never stopped being the best at what she did. And so, the legendary sniper prepared to change everything. The commander was alive. The SEAL team had a chance. And in the shadows, a woman who had once been forgotten by the world was about to prove that legends do not fade. They simply wait for the right moment to act. The night was still, but it carried the tension of what was about to unfold. The sniper stayed low, every muscle coiled, every sense alert. The valley below was silent, except for the occasional crack of distant rocks or rustle of leaves in the wind. From her vantage point, she could see the commander, barely moving, hidden in the shadows of rocks. He had survived for days, rationing water, conserving energy, and relying on instincts that had saved him before. But alone and surrounded by enemy forces, he could not hold out much longer. She adjusted her position slightly, careful to remain unseen. The enemy had patrols moving in unpredictable patterns, and any mistake could end everything. Her breath was steady, her heart calm, but her mind was racing with possibilities. Every calculation she had made over the past days came into focus now. Timing, cover, enemy behavior, distance, signals. All of it mattered. She had one chance, and it had to be perfect. She checked her rifle, ensuring everything was in place. The scope was aligned, the silencer attached, and the ammunition ready. She would not fire unless absolutely necessary. Her role was observation, guidance, and extraction planning. The team would act, but she had to give them the best possible conditions to succeed. She studied the enemy's movements, noting patrol patterns, listening for subtle sounds, and watching the shadows. Slowly, she marked the safest route to reach the commander without being seen. It was narrow, winding, and filled with potential danger. One wrong step could alert the enemy and put both the commander and herself at risk. After hours of careful observation, she moved. Her steps were silent, deliberate. She hugged the shadows, used the terrain for cover, and adjusted constantly to remain hidden. She paused frequently, scanning ahead, listening, recalculating. The commander's survival depended on her patience and precision. Finally, she reached a position close enough to see the commander clearly. He was alive but weak. His breathing was shallow and his movements were slow, but he reacted immediately to the slightest sound. She whispered his name softly, though he could not hear her yet. She needed to assess his condition before signaling the team. She checked for injuries. He was battered and bruised, with deep scratches and a few minor wounds. Nothing appeared life-threatening, but he was dehydrated, exhausted, and in need of immediate care. She applied a small first aid kit she had brought, treating the most urgent wounds. She moved with care, keeping an eye on the surroundings at all times. While tending to him, she whispered instructions for him to stay still, conserve energy, and trust her. He looked at her, confused but alert. Recognition sparked in his eyes, and a small smile appeared. Even in his weakened state, he understood that she was the reason he might survive. Once she stabilized him as best as possible, she activated a covert signal. It was subtle, but would alert the SEAL team waiting in a nearby hidden position. Within minutes, the team was moving. Guided by her signals, they navigated the dangerous terrain, avoiding patrols, and reaching positions where they could provide cover and assist in extraction. The first contact of the enemy came as expected. A patrol had drifted off course, close enough to spot movement. She signaled the team to hold, observing the patrol's pattern, waiting for the exact moment to act. When the patrol turned away, she guided the team forward, maintaining the element of surprise. The commander's relief was visible, though he could not move quickly. The sniper gave him calm instructions, helping him adjust his position and move slowly toward a safer area. The SEAL team provided cover, neutralizing threats silently and efficiently. The coordination between her observation and their action was precise, almost choreographed. Every step was measured. Every breath was controlled. The team had to move quickly but carefully, balancing speed with caution. Enemy forces were nearby, and one mistake could expose them. The sniper's experience was crucial. She had seen countless situations like this and knew when to act and when to wait. As they advanced, the commander's strength began to return slightly, buoyed by hope and the presence of those who had come for him. His confidence in the sniper and the team grew, and he followed her guidance without hesitation. Each step brought them closer to safety, but the danger never fully left. The enemy was more numerous than expected. Patrols were scattered, some returning to their positions, others moving unpredictably. The sniper adjusted constantly, directing the SEAL team with hand signals and whispers through secure communication channels. She predicted movements, suggested routes, and ensured that no one strayed into danger. At one point, they had to cross a small open area. Exposure would be dangerous, but there was no alternative. The sniper signaled a distraction, creating a diversion that drew enemy attention away from the path. The team moved swiftly, carrying commander, and reached the next cover point safely. Hours passed like this, a careful dance of observation, movement, and precise timing. The commander, once near collapse, began to regain his composure. The SEAL team, driven by loyalty and skill, followed every instruction, trusting her implicitly. Every moment was tense, every decision critical. Finally, they reached a ridge that overlooked a clearing where extraction was possible. The sniper signaled the team to hold. From this vantage point, she assessed the final stretch. Enemy forces were scattered, but the area was still dangerous. The plan required them to move quickly, using speed and coordination to avoid detection. She gave the final instructions. The team moved, carrying commander, while she provided cover and guidance. Enemy patrols were bypassed, neutralized silently where necessary, and every movement was synchronized. The commander, weak but determined, followed every instruction. As they reached the extraction point, the helicopter arrived quietly, landing in the shadows. The team moved swiftly, lifting the commander onto the craft while maintaining security. The sniper stayed in position, watching, ensuring the extraction went smoothly. Her heart did not race. She remained focused, ready for any last-minute complication. The helicopter lifted off just as a small patrol approached. The team on the ground moved away, retreating under her guidance, and the commander was finally safe inside. Relief washed over the group, but there was no celebration yet. Every second was still dangerous until they were clear of enemy territory. Once the helicopter reached a safe distance, the team breathed, truly realizing the weight of what had happened. The commander was alive, against all odds. He looked at the sniper through the small opening in the door, understanding immediately who had orchestrated everything. His gratitude was silent but deep, conveyed in a single nod and the unspoken bond between them. The sniper remained calm, collected, even as the tension finally eased. She had completed her mission, but she did not linger for recognition. Her role was to act, not to receive praise. The SEAL team knew this, and their respect for her grew even stronger. Back at base, the commander was attended by medics and recovered in a secure location. The SEAL team stayed close, supporting him, proud of their own actions, but aware that the success was due in large part to the sniper who had guided them. Her precision, patience, and courage had made all the difference. News of the extraction was carefully managed. Command knew the details, but the full story remained classified. The focus was on the success of the team and the safety of the commander. No one publicly knew about the sniper's role, but for the SEAL team, it was impossible to forget. That night, after the operation, the team gathered quietly in their room. They spoke in hushed tones, replaying the events, sharing relief, and marveling at the precision of the mission. The commander, once on the brink of being lost forever, was alive because of a woman they had only known through stories, legends, and now first-hand experience. The sniper disappeared soon after, returning to the shadows she had come from. She did not ask for recognition, medals, or thanks. Her mission was complete, and she had no desire to linger. The SEAL team respected her choice, understanding that true legends never need applause. They act because it is necessary. The commander recovered fully over the following weeks, sharing quiet moments with his team, expressing gratitude without words. The bond between them had been tested, stretched to its limits, and reinforced in ways that would last a lifetime. The team had risked everything, guided by a legend, to bring back the man they refused to leave behind. And in the shadows, somewhere beyond sight and memory, the sniper prepared for the next impossible mission. She remained unseen, unrecognized, but her impact had changed lives, restored hope, and proven once again that patience, skill, and courage can overcome even the most impossible odds. The night of the extraction ended, but the story of courage, trust, and determination will remain forever, whispered in the quiet halls of the base, remembered in the hearts of those who had seen what it truly meant to never give up on a comrade, no matter the danger, no matter the odds. The commander lay in the medical tent, his body finally beginning to recover, but his mind was still processing everything that had happened. The past days had been a blur of pain, fear, and exhaustion, yet now there was relief. Relief that the nightmare had ended, that he was alive, and that the team he trusted so deeply had not given up on him. He looked around at the familiar faces of the men who had risked everything to bring him back, and his heart swelled with gratitude that words could barely capture. The SEAL team gathered around him, a mix of quiet smiles, nods, and restrained emotion. They had been through hell and back together, and now, finally, they could breathe. Every one of them had been tested in ways they could never have imagined, and every one of them had emerged stronger, bonded not just by training, but by the sheer intensity of survival. The relief was palpable, but it was intertwined with a deep understanding of the cost. He remembered the night in the valley, the explosion, the gunfire, the chaos, and the moment he had realized he was alone. Panic had not overtaken him. He had trained too long to let fear rule his decisions. Instead, he had focused on survival, on assessing his surroundings, and on waiting for a chance that he knew would come. What he had not anticipated was the presence of someone extraordinary, watching from the shadows, calculating every detail with a precision that rivaled his own. The legendary sniper had changed everything. She had arrived silently, worked tirelessly, and guided the team through impossible terrain, unseen and unrecognized. Her presence had been a lifeline, a force of calm in a storm that could have consumed them all. The commander knew that without her, he would not be sitting here today, talking quietly with the men who had refused to leave him behind. Even as he recovered, he thought about the nature of trust and loyalty. These were not words to be used lightly in their world. They were tested in the fire of combat, in moments when every choice could mean life or death. The SEAL team had demonstrated that trust is more than belief. It is action, unwavering even when the odds are impossible. And the sniper, though absent from their daily lives, had proven the same. The recovery process was slow. His body had endured injuries that required careful monitoring, and every day brought a small victory. A stretch of the legs, a stronger pulse, a clearer mind. The medics were skilled, but their work was supported by the courage of those who had brought him back. Without their planning, their discipline, and their precise execution under pressure, no medical skill could have compensated for the exposure and danger he had faced. Word of the extraction spread quietly to the higher ranks, though the full story remained classified. Command recognized the success of the mission, the leadership of the SEAL team, and the courage of the individuals involved. Yet, the details of the sniper's involvement remained secret, known only to those who had witnessed it firsthand. In the world they operated in, actions mattered more than recognition, and heroes often remained unseen. In the quiet moments, The commander reflected on the lessons he had learned. He thought about patience, resilience, and the unexpected forms that help could take. He had always believed in his team, but he now understood that sometimes salvation comes from places you least expect, from someone operating outside the system, unseen, waiting for the exact moment to act. The sniper had not sought accolades. She had acted because it was necessary, and her effectiveness had been undeniable. The SEAL team continued to check in on him, ensuring that he remained stable and that recovery progressed. Their bond was unspoken but unbreakable. They had been forced to make choices under pressure, to follow orders that went against instinct, and yet they had endured. Their respect for one another had grown through shared hardship, and now, with the commander alive, that bond had reached a level of trust and loyalty that would last a lifetime. Back at the base, normal routines slowly resumed. Drills, briefings, and training exercises returned, but the shadow of recent events lingered. The men moved with renewed focus, driven not by routine, but by experience and understanding. They knew the value of preparation, the necessity of precision, and the importance of teamwork. Lessons learned in the field could not be taught in a classroom. They were etched into the minds and bodies of those who had lived through them. The commander himself emerged from the medical tent gradually. At first, short walks, then longer ones, each step building strength and confidence. He spent time with each member of his team, acknowledging silently the courage and dedication they had shown. There were no speeches, no grand gestures, just a quiet understanding between men who had faced death together and survived. Despite the official recognition, the team could not forget the silent hero who had made everything possible. The sniper's role remained a mystery to most, her name never mentioned in reports or commendations. Yet for the SEALs and their commander, she became an enduring symbol of precision, patience, and bravery. She represented the kind of heroism that does not seek approval, the kind that acts because it is necessary, and the kind that changes lives without ever needing recognition. Months passed. The commander regained his full strength, returning to duty with a renewed sense of purpose. The SEAL team continued their operations, their skills honed further by the recent ordeal. They trained harder, coordinated better, and operated with a deepened respect for the unpredictable nature of their work. Every mission, every decision carried the weight of the lessons they had learned during the rescue. Occasionally, they would speak in quiet moments about the events that had unfolded. They would recall small details, the precise timing, the careful guidance, the patience of the sniper, the bravery of the team. Each story was told with reverence, never exaggerated, never forgotten. These were moments that defined them, not in headlines or awards, but in memory and shared experience. The commander, now fully recovered, understood that true leadership was not just about making decisions in calm situations. It was about trust, patience, and the ability to inspire others to act decisively when stakes were highest. He often thought of the sniper, imagining her watching from the shadows, ensuring that everything went as planned. He knew that her actions had not only saved him, but had restored faith in the principle that no one gets left behind. As the seasons changed, the team carried forward, but the memory of that mission remained vivid. The lessons they had learned, the value of patience, the importance of trust, and the power of decisive action, shaped every decision, every strategy, and every training session. They had faced what seemed impossible and emerged stronger, bound not just by duty, but by respect for one another and for those who acted without expectation of reward. The sniper, true to her nature, disappeared once the mission was complete. She returned to her solitude, unseen and unacknowledged by the larger world. Yet her influence endured. The commander and the SEAL team remembered her not in medals or ceremonies, but in the quiet confidence that comes from knowing a life was saved because someone acted when others could not. In time, the story of the rescue became part of the team's unspoken legacy. It was a tale not meant for headlines or public recognition, but for the hearts of those who understood sacrifice, courage, and unwavering loyalty. The commander often reflected on the experience, teaching younger members of the team about the value of trust, the importance of observation, and the quiet power of action. The SEALs never forgot that mission, the night in the valley, and the woman who had changed everything. They carried forward not only their skills and discipline, but also the lesson that heroes do not always seek recognition. Sometimes, the greatest act of bravery happened in silence, in shadows, and without the world ever knowing. The commander would always honor that principle, ensuring that his team remembered it, that their actions reflected it, and that the unspoken heroism of the sniper would continue to inspire them. In the world they lived in, where danger was constant and decision could mean life or death, the quiet knowledge that someone had gone beyond expectation, had acted decisively, and had brought him back alive, remained a powerful force. In the end, the mission had accomplished more than just survival. It had restored honor, strengthened bonds, and proven that trust and courage, when combined with skill and patience, could overcome even the most impossible odds. The commander, the team, and the unseen sniper had all played their part, each contributing to a story of resilience and heroism that would endure far beyond the valley, far beyond the moment, and far beyond the recognition of the world. The SEAL team had been turned away, orders had been followed and ignored, and yet the mission had been completed because of determination, trust, and unwavering courage. The commander had returned, stronger and wiser, and the legacy of the sniper remained an enduring reminder that true heroes act not for praise, but because it's the right thing to do. And somewhere in the shadows of classified files and the quiet corners of memory, the sniper waited for the next impossible mission, knowing that the measure of heroism is not in being seen, but in making the impossible possible, silently, efficiently, and without expectation. The story had ended for now, but its lessons, its courage, and its humanity would live on forever.